dialing in from the studio here in North Carolina. It is Wednesday. It's 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and this is lesson number 3 of our second trimester in 2025. So welcome. This is NGO Radio Terra's free lessons for all ages and all levels, hosted by NGO Radio Terra on their YouTube channel. So make sure that you like and subscribe. Make sure that you hang out with me in the chat as I continue to do these things for another 9 weeks. I'm excited to be bringing you all that I know and all that I've been working for in this game of being a professional musician and creative. So let's get to it. Today we're going to be talking about pocket. We're going to be talking about some essentials regarding timekeeping and how to work with metronomes and time through a myriad of creative different. Have to be boring to work with the metronome. So I'm going to show you some of the ways in which it's helped me to improve my time. And ultimately, I think that the conversation about time, feel, pocket is synonymous with each other. They're one and the same, but I feel that they mean different things. They are representative of different aspects of one whole thing, which is about making that beat feel good. Feel, to me, sometimes, and again, let me state this, that everybody has their own specific definition of what time is, of what feel is, of what pocket is especially. And some people interchange these terms. So I'm going to try and be as specific and stick to my terms as good as possible so that we can be clear today. Back to the thing about feel is that, depending on how you play it, whether or not you're feeling a little bit lazy that day or whether or not you're feeling anxious that day could determine how you make that groove feel. The groove is the notes themselves. It's the pattern itself, right? And then keeping time is how even you can keep that pattern, right, with that feel that you've brought to the table, how even you can keep it for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 minutes, however long the song is. So that hopefully, if there's no click involved, that the tempo is the same at the beginning, middle, and end. There's different ways in which I'm going to show you to make it easier to do that with no click. When we're playing with the click, the tempo is being created for us moment by moment, note by note, click by click. And it's about sort of getting inside of each and every one of those clicks in terms of that discipline. And then there's the discipline of maintaining your groove without the click, and we are expected to make those things the same. Now, I know that drummers in different genres and idioms, they define this differently. I suppose if you're in the gospel space or the studio musician space or in the metal space or in what else, the R&B space, where click is actually inherently a part of the gig and being able to play perfectly with inside of that is the gig, you can understand how those musicians, they feel about making sure that you're right locked with the click. And then there's, like in the space of avant-garde music, experimental music, swing, improvisational music, also known as jazz, Black American music styles that don't have a click to them still require us to perform at a high level, still require us to keep the time consistent. But Roy Haynes, and this is paraphrasing him, he would say that he's not going to be necessarily keeping metronomic time for you, but he's going to keep it feeling good throughout the entire thing. And when you listen to Roy Haynes, it sounds the same in the beginning, middle, and end. There's certain jazz recordings, though, that you do hear famous drummers speed up at the very end of the song. That melody is faster than it was at the beginning. And do we discount those recordings from being legitimate or cool? No. But I think that as in terms of music students, we're always aiming to keep, especially as drummers, the most consistent time. So let's start out with a little bit of click. Just get warmed up and get in the groove. right there just loving to listen to the click. When I don't hear the click anymore, that's how I know that I'm actually really, really in the center of each beat. One thing I want to impart to you, and this is something that kind of goes for all of our particular forays into meditation, into the inner world of drumming, is that when we be mindful of every single beat, we stop having time to be distracted by anything else. There is a meditative practice with playing time. I wouldn't even say to playing to a click, but just to playing time. Because it involves us keeping track of each and every single step and then looping that, being in step with ourselves, right? We have to loop our groove. So I'm going to now show you what it's like to not have a click playing and keep the groove consistent over the course of a couple minutes. And I'm going to sing a melody in my head, and this melody is going to keep me in check with myself. This melody, as I continue to listen to also the vibrations of my drums, and hopefully I'm hitting these vibrations at the same time over and over, which creates a natural acoustic loop in addition to the melody that I'm singing. Well, that should show me a consistent loop of time in a way that I can keep track of without a click playing. All right, and I know that sounds a bit abstract, but let me show you what I mean. I'm going to sing the melody over and over in my head, and I'm going to listen to my drums as I play. Okay, so I was singing this melody to a Benny Golson standard called Stablemates, and I'm singing it in my head, and I'm just recognizing, you know, how much time it kind of takes for me to get around one revolution of that song. And I'm listening to how my drums are reverberating at that tempo, just naturally by playing them. And if I'm really, really listening as intently as I should be to the music and to my own sound at the same time, then, you know, having my body already in motion, grooving and playing drums, I should be able to keep the pocket. We should be able to establish consistent time from that. One other thing that I'm always thinking of when I'm in this particular process of, you know, creating time internally is I'm imagining a grid, right? I'm imagining a grid in front of me. This tambourine tried to sabotage the groove, but I wouldn't let it. See, that's what happens in the live setting. You may even have the tambourine fall in between the bass drum beater and the bass drum, like happened to me just now, and you still got to keep going, but I had to go and fish it out from the line of fire. Anyways, you know, you may actually, I lost track of what I was saying, but you may not necessarily be good. Oh, that's what I was saying. You may not necessarily be good at it right away, but you can improve upon it by creating some tempo here and then play rudiments to it, and this will help you identify the grid that you should also be seeing when you're playing, right? And this grid is just all of the rhythmic variations that are possible at any given tempo. Sort of like seeing a matrices, right? Sort of like seeing a matrix in front of you as you move forward. So right, so basically you're going to see all those subdivisions in front of you, and you're going to hear those subdivisions so that when you actually play, you can recall any one of those as feels or as fills. And hopefully you have it all together to the point where whenever you do shift into one of those subdivisions, you don't speed up or slow down, which is why we play those subdivisions to the metronome. And we talked about this last week, and I'm going to continue talking about this because this is something that I think most young drummers or drummers in general should continue to practice as fundamentals. Hit these as fundamentals in the practice room before you go out on the road. Hit them as fundamentals in the practice room before you go to a school or a senior recital. Hit these as fundamentals in the practice room even when you have nothing coming up, because this is what's going to help you get work in the future, right? Okay, so practice that at like every tempo. That's really all I can say for that, because that'll help you understand what grid you need to be hearing and seeing before your very eyes every time a new song comes or a new tempo comes. That, and when you're deriving tempo from within, you should be listening to your own sound come back at you and duplicate that sound over and over again and create a loop like that. When you're deriving tempo from inside of you, you should be singing the melody over and over in your head and paying attention to that revolution, paying attention to, does that melody sound the same now that you've been playing it, let's say, for 5, 6, 7 minutes as it did in minute 30 or 30 at the 30-second mark or minute 1 of the beginning of the song, right? Does that melody sound the same in your head? And sometimes in your head it can sound the same and you've actually sped up or slowed down. Oftentimes that's because you also weren't seeing or hearing the grid aspect of timekeeping. So by seeing and hearing the grid in all of the subdivision possibilities and singing the melody at the same time and being aware of your own sound, you should be able to keep pretty consistent time. Good enough so that people wouldn't necessarily complain about it. And understand that you're not an actual human metronome. Some human beings are, but most human beings are not perfect metronomic timekeepers, although they are pretty darn close, right? So check out Steve Gadd, check out Earth, Wind, and Fire, check out James Brown, check out, listen, just check out gospel drummers, check out Tony Williams, check out Daru Jones, check out Spanky, check out Billy Hart, check out all these different drummers, because all these people are in different genres of Black American music and world music, and these drummers all have probably different definitions and takes on time, feel, pocket. But one thing I want to say about pocket is that it is the sum of all parts agreeing on the final product, right? It's the sum of the band, the bass player, the guitar player, the keyboard player, and the drummer all coming together to define their own pocket. Not one of them can define the pocket, but all 4 of them or all 5 of them can define the pocket. Same thing goes for each limb of yours. The sum of your right hand, your left hand, your right foot, and your left foot is how your pocket sounds, right? Because if your hi-hat is a little bit behind the beat, or right, that changes the pocket. Right, that's my hi-hat being ahead of the game. That's my hi-hat being behind the game. This is my hi-hat being in the center. Same thing with this. Okay, so shifting that where we put the hi-hat can greatly affect the pocket or greatly affect the feel, and that would probably shift how some of the other musicians would respond to you, and thus the pocket would change. So it's really important that you stick to your idea as much as you possibly can. And once you get something cool and grooving that other people are responding well to, chances are they've already locked that into their memory and into their body. And anytime you change it up, they'll feel that. So be aware of how sensitive we all are to the changing of very, very small, subtle things. Let's talk about some fun ways to play with metronomes, okay? We all know about just playing with the metronome in the center of it. But now we can shift where we come in, and that'll change the metronome's position. Now the metronome, excuse me, now the metronome is on the upbeats. Now we're back on the one again. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shift it by a 16th note. So 2, 3, 4. Right? So if we can get comfortable with hearing the metronome in different positions, then we can really improve our own internal clock, because now we're going to have to really hang steady onto a new one and feel the weight of the metronome be on another beat, which shouldn't really throw us off, because another musician might play that exact thing. But it's the consistency, it's the unrelenting drive, that perfect time and a metronome has, that just starts. Effect is a positive effect. It's just us getting tighter and us getting more clear and succinct. So another cool way that I like to practice with metronomes is by having two at the same time. So this is going to be two metronomes at the same tempo, but triggered slightly off from one another. All right, so we've got kind of a flam thing going, right? Now, I'm going to try and lock in with just one of them at a time, and that'll give me an idea of what it would feel like if I were playing on the, kind of on the other click, which is a different feel. So. All right, now I'm going to lock with the higher woodblock sound. This sound, I'm going to lock with that. Right? And so now I'm going to make them triggered further apart. All right, now I'm gonna lock with this one. Okay, so what was happening for me was that I was aware of how when I was locked in with this click versus that click, that I was extremely behind the beat or extremely ahead of the beat. And this gives us two ways of kind of being able to hear the same tempo expressed in different ways. The only thing is that you can really only compare the two of them by hearing them both at the same time. When you would be playing this with, say, a keyboardist, guitarist, and a bass player, their rhythm would count as one of those metronomes, and then how you participate as the drummer would be the other metronome, right? The further apart you get from them, the less groovy and pocketed it would feel. The tighter it is, the groovier it is. So again, this is the same tempo triggered exactly at the same time. It's tighter. All right, so now I'm going to create the same thing. I'm going to trigger both of these tempos at the same time, but I'm going to just increase the time on one of them. So they're both at 120. I'm going to make this one 121 and then play along with the 121 tempo. And listen to how the 120 loops in and out of this new tempo, and just compare the two of them and ultimately lock in on my anti-distraction coordination. So as you can see, the wood block sound would start to drag really far behind this more beepy sound. And I would know that that is kind of how far the distance between 120 and 121 can be if you just let them go. Let's listen to the difference between, let's say, 125 and 120. I'm going to trigger them at the same time, and I'm going to lock with this one right here. This is the beep sound. Right? So you can see how interesting it can get. One thing I like about this is it just really, really forces you to lock in, literally and figuratively. It forces you to really decide what you're going to listen to, and you have to listen to that every single beat, every single time, forever. You are locked into a loop, and that is the whole point. And so, as we kind of practice these many different levels of locking in, we start to create what is a really, really fantastic time mechanism that's really built in within our bodies that we can use to create consistent time whenever and however we want, as well as we can use that to sync with a machine and keep ourselves consistent with the machine. And by playing off of the click, on with the click, moving the click around, using two clicks at the same time, all these different ways, using no click, we can actually really, really improve our time. So when it comes for the gig, you're ready. Check some of these ideas out. I think these are kind of fun, some fun, creative ways of making playing with a metronome not super lame. All right? Like I said, check out all those drummers that I mentioned a couple minutes ago, and follow me here Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, brought to you by NGO Radio Terra's free lessons for all levels and all ages. My name is E. Cushionist. Thank you so much to my sponsors, Tamburo Drums, Pro L, Roland Corporation, Icon Microphones, and of course, NGO Radio Terra. Thanks so much. See you again soon. Peace and blessings, you guys.